Isaiah 53. Who would have believed what we had just heard? When was the Lord's power revealed through him? He sprouted up like a twig before God, like a root out of parched soil. He had no stately form or majesty that might catch our attention, no special appearance that we should want to follow him. He was despised and rejected by people, one who experienced pain and was acquainted with illness. People hid their faces from him. He was despised and was considered himself insignificant. But he lifted up our illnesses. He carried our pain, even though we thought he was being punished, attacked by God, and afflicted for something he had done. He was wounded because of our rebellious deeds, crushed because of our sin. He endured punishment that made us well. Because of his wounds, we have been healed. All of us have wandered off like sheep. Each of us have strayed off his own path. But the Lord caused the sin of all of us to attack him. He was treated harshly and afflicted, and he did not open his mouth. Like a lamb led to the slaughtering block, like a sheep silent before the shears. He did not open his mouth. He was led away after an unjust trial. But who even cared? Indeed, he was cut off from the land of the living because of the rebellion of his own people. He was wounded. They intended to bury him with criminals, but he ended up in a rich man's tomb, because he had committed no violent deeds, nor had he spoken deceitful. Though the Lord desired to crush him and make him ill, once restitution is made, he will see descendants and enjoy long life, and the Lord's purpose will be accomplished through him. Having suffered, he will reflect on his own work. He will be satisfied when he understands what he has done. My servant will acquit many. He will carry for he carried their sins. So I will assign him a portion with the multitudes. He will divide the spoils of victory with the powerful, because he willingly submitted to death and was numbered with the rebels. When he lifted up the sin of many and intervened on behalf of the rebels. Being familiar with this passage from the New Testament and Jesus, we need to put that aside as we look into it. We need to first see what the original audience would have heard from Isaiah in regards to this. It is the suffering servant motif. The suffering servant is Israel. So Israel is going to be going off, or I should say has already gone off, and we're going to be describing what is happening to Israel. So we need to have that in mind. We need to think through all of that. We can't just rush to Jesus and ignore what the original audience would have heard or thought. So who would have believed what we just heard? Who would believe that deliverance is going to come for someone that went off into captivity? The nation that went into captivity, my servant, Israel, went into captivity. Who would have heard? When was the Lord's power revealed through him? He sprouted up like a twig before God, like a root out of a parched soil. He had no stately form or majesty that might catch our attention, no special appearance that we should want to follow him. So he sprouted like a twig before God. I'm wondering if this is talking like Israel, Jacob, and his life sprouting up, taking root in the parched soil. He had no stately form or majesty that might catch our attention, no special appearance that we should want to follow him. This could be Abraham, going back to that. Like I said, Israel is the servant, so it could be thinking of Jacob, or it could be referring to the current state of which you have been in captivity. There is nothing special about you being in captivity that anyone wants to follow you. He was despised and rejected by people, one who experienced pain and acquainted with illness. People hid their face from him. He was despised, and we considered him insignificant. Let me see what we have here. Rejected by people, lacking of men. Okay, so that's just explaining there. Don't think that's anything we need to hid their faces from him, like hiding a face from him. the servant likened to seriously ill person who was shunned by others because of his horrible disease. So yeah, being battered and abused, being captive, there's nothing special about you. You're not significant at all. But he lifted up our illnesses and carried our pain. I think this goes back to Israel being personified here as the nation. So the sins of the nation are being carried by the nation, even though we thought he was being punished, attacked by God, and afflicted for something he had done. He was wounded because of our rebellious deeds, crushed because of our sins. He endured punishment that made us well. All right, well, Lucis, first we want to see, what is it talking about to the original audience? Because if this is only talking about Jesus, it means nothing to the original audience. We need to know, what does it mean to the original audience first before we jump to the New Testament. So, yes, it's talking about Jesus, but it has to be talking about something else before it's applied to Jesus. So, he was wounded because of our rebellious deeds. So, the rebellious deeds, yeah, we know all of those. We had those talked about. Why is Israel going into captivity? But here's where it gets that motif of it's separating out the ideal, I think, of Israel personified as the nation from the sins of the nation. I think there's a separation here in the way. So it's personifying Israel as the person who is true to God from the sins. And so because of the affliction, there is going to be restoration. Crushed because of our sins, so this is the collective people. He endured punishment that made us well. The punishment of our peace was upon him, shalom, peace, the genitive punishment that resulted in our peace. Because of his wounds, we have been healed. All of us have wandered off like sheep. Each of us has strayed our own path. But the Lord caused the sin of all of us to attack him. I kind of like the way that's worded there. Okay, elsewhere, the hiphil, para, means to intercede verbally, to intercede militarily, but neither nuance fits here. Apparently here, the hiphil is the causative of the normal call, meaning encounter, meet, touch. The call sometimes referred to a hostile encounter or attack. When used in this way, the object is normally introduced by a preposition. Here, the causative hiphil has a double object. The Lord makes sin attack him. Note the object attacked is introduced by the preposition. In their sin, the group was like sheep who had wandered from God's path. They were vulnerable to attack. The guilt of their sin was ready to attack and destroy them. But then the servant stepped in and took the force of the attack. So the attack, so sin is crouching at the door and its desire is for you. So in some ways, one of the things we can do at times is just look at God removing his hand of protection from his people and letting the natural consequence of a sinful world unfold upon them. And in that way, I think we see it here. So the consequences of sin that you were involved in are coming to attack you, and the suffering servant is the one who intervenes on behalf of the nation to be able to withstand it. So the personification of the nation is here taking the sin of the nation. He did not even open his mouth. Like a lamb led to the slaughtering block, like a sheep silent before the shears, he did not open his mouth. He was led away after an unjust trial. But who even cared? Okay, not going to go down that one. Indeed, he was cut off from the land of the living. Because of the rebellion of his own people, he was wounded. So, again, we're personifying the nation being taken away and separating that from the sin of the... So we're having the personification of the person who is loyal to God, the son, Israel, is here, and God is bringing about his judgment fury. They intended to bury him with criminals, but he ended up in a rich man's tomb. The line literally reads, and with the rich in his death, because he had committed no violent deed, nor had he spoken deceitfully. So this is certainly not talking about the rulers of the nation, because they were doing a lot of this stuff. Though the Lord desired to crush him and make him ill, once restoration is made, he will see his descendants enjoy long life, and the Lord's purpose will be accomplished through him. So his descendants, so all of the children. So we had Abraham being the founding father. You were chiseled from. Now we have here the image of the suffering servant that is, all things are going to be accomplished through him. He is my servant. All right, so having suffered, he will reflect on his work. He will be satisfied when he understands what he has done. So when Israel understands what they have done, they will be satisfied. My servant will acquit many, for he carries their sins, as I will assign him a portion with the multitudes. Assigning him a portion with the multitudes. Scholars have debated the precise meaning of Rabim that occurs 5 times in this passage. Its 2 broad categories of translation are much, many, and great. So unlike other Hebrew terms that for might or strength, this term is linked with numbers or abundance. In 16 uses, okay, we're not going down that whole thing. Okay. Anyway, so they don't know exactly the multitudes here, how to do that. So we'll assign him a portion with the multitudes. They will divide the spoils of victory with the powerful, because he willingly submitted to death and was numbered with rebels when he lifted up the sin of many and intervened on behalf of the rebels. So, assigning with the multitudes, he's just within the nation. The spoils of victory with the powerful, like the temple was looted. So we can see this being a description of what happened to Israel as it went off into captivity. It took this personification of Israel as a person, is the one who goes off into captivity, takes all the sin and iniquity, takes upon the image, or all the insults of the other nations, all the taunts of all of them, takes all of the condemnation, takes all of that upon themselves as the one who is the Son whom God has chosen. And then we had the carrying of the sins, all of those things. He's going to make it through, all of those things. So it's taking the nation and talking about it as if it's a singular person. And now, after we've seen that that is what's happening here in Israel, in Isaiah, we can then go and say, now I can see how this motif of the people going into captivity, of being under the power of this other nation, is a same way in which we are taken into captivity and we are under the power of sin and death. And there needs to be a suffering servant who would take all of that upon himself and restore and redeem us. So that's where we then get Jesus as the image, who is the suffering servant here. But first, there has to be the suffering servant, the one who is God's chosen person, chosen people in Isaiah's time before we jump to Jesus. And so I hope that you're able to see a little bit of that and not just think, well, it's all Jesus. Because frankly, we're doing no justice to the original audience hearing it if we just jump to Jesus.